All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty controversial idea. We're talking about the very first major social theory of aging. You can think of it as the first draft for how we tried to understand life's final chapter. It's called disengagement theory. So let's just start with a question that in our world today sounds kind of backwards. What if the real secret to a happy old age isn't about staying busy and connected, but doing the exact opposite? What if it's about gracefully and even intentionally just letting it all go? Well, back in 1961, two sociologists named Cumming and Henry basically said, yep, that's it. Their disengagement theory was a huge deal. It said that as we get older, it's not only natural, but actually healthy for us to slowly pull away from society and for society to pull away from us. Now, here's the kicker. They didn't see this as some sad tragedy. They saw it as a good thing, a win-win for everybody.
So, you might be wondering, how exactly is this supposed to work? The theory claims it's not some random chaotic decline. Oh no, it's a structured, almost pre-programmed retreat. Let's break down the step-by-step process they laid out.
Okay, so the theory lays out this 5-step journey. It all starts with step 1, an awareness that your time is limited. That realization then leads to step 2, a mutual withdrawal. From there, you begin to hand off your big life roles, parent, worker, leader, which is step 3. And that, in turn, brings a surprising new freedom from social rules. The whole thing is supposed to end in this peaceful, final state they called a new equilibrium. Now, that word mutual is absolutely key here. This isn't just about an older person deciding to become a recluse. It's a two-way street. The individual starts to pull back, reduce their social circles, and at the same time, society basically gives them a hall pass, saying, it's okay to be less productive now. Think about retirement. That's the ultimate formal permission slip. It's framed like a handshake, a mutual agreement. I know, this all still feels a little bit abstract, right? So to make it more concrete, let's look at a couple of really powerful analogies that the theorists use to get their idea across. Okay, first up, picture society as this massive, endless relay race. It's a race that started long before you were born, and it's going to keep going long after you're gone. You get your turn to run, to carry the baton, but you can't, and you probably shouldn't, try to run forever. And here's how that analogy breaks down from society's perspective. The runner, that's you in your prime, the active adult. The baton, that's your social role. Your job, your leadership position, your responsibilities. Disengagement is the all-important handoff. By passing that baton to the next runner, you make sure the race continues without a hitch. It's all about a smooth transition. So that's what's in it for society, but what about for you, the individual? For this, think of life as a big, loud party. When you're young, you're right there in the middle of the dance floor. But this theory says, a truly successful older person is like a gracious party guest. They know when the party's gotten a little too loud, and they know when it's time to elegantly say their goodbyes and head home for some well-earned peace and quiet. Trying to stay till the very end would just be exhausting. So what does this stuff actually look like in the real world? Well, this table gives us some perfect examples. Socially, it could be as simple as a grandmother deciding to pass the huge job of hosting holiday dinners over to her daughter. Psychologically, it might mean you stop worrying so much about the day-to-day news cycle and spend more time reflecting on your own life and memories. And occupationally, the most obvious one is, of course, taking that retirement package. So far, this theory paints a pretty neat and tidy picture of aging, doesn't it? A logical, functional, almost serene process. But, as you can probably guess, just like with a lot of these big first draft ideas, the story started to unravel pretty quickly once other researchers started poking at it. I mean, you can see the appeal. On the surface, it makes a certain kind of sense, right? It gives a sense of order to what can feel like a messy process. So where did it all go wrong? What were the big plot holes that made this theory fall apart? Well, the critiques came in fast and furious. First, and this is a big one, critics pointed out that this theory could be used as a perfect excuse for ageism, for pushing older, experienced people out of their jobs. Second, it made this huge claim to be universal, that this is how everyone ages, which just isn't true. It totally ignores things like personality, culture, and personal choice. And finally, and this is probably the most important point, the theory's promised outcome was just plain wrong. And here it is. This is the knockout blow. The theory promised that this withdrawal would lead to a happy, peaceful equilibrium.
But decades of modern research in gerontology and psychology have found the exact opposite. Social isolation, a loss of purpose, these things don't lead to peace. Far more often, they lead to depression, to poor health, and to a much faster physical decline.
Okay, so if the theory is basically debunked, why did we just spend all this time talking about it? Why should we care about an old idea that got it wrong? Well, because its legacy is actually incredibly important. Here's the main takeaway. Disengagement theory was the necessary first draft. By being so bold and, ultimately so flawed, it kicked off decades of debate and research. It created a benchmark that other, better theories could push against. It's because of this theory that we got ideas like activity theory, which says the opposite, that staying active is key, and continuity theory, which argues we're happiest when we maintain our core selves as we age. And all of that leaves us with a really important final question. If gracefully letting go of everything isn't the answer, then what does it really mean to age successfully today? That's the huge conversation that this flawed first draft got started, and it's a conversation that we are all still having.